Here are a few of the most heartwarming animal rescue stories. Number 9. Hippo rescues a wildebeest. In the wild, if a crocodile gets you with the mouth, you can pretty much forget about it. Game over, that is, unless a good Samaritan or a good hippo in this instance comes to the rescue, which is sort of what happened here. Let me explain. First off, there are a few things you should know about hippos. They're huge. They usually weigh more than 3,000 pounds, with the largest ones weighing almost 10,000 pounds. They're fast, they can reach speeds of nearly 20 miles an hour, and they're pretty mean. So hippos aren't to be messed with by anyone. So this awesome footage captured at Kruger National Park in South Africa is truly mind-blowing. The rangers there had the foresight to put cameras up at a watering hole, which, if you ever watch National Geographic or the Discovery Channel, you know these places have plenty of action. While taking a sip of water, a wildebeest found itself ambushed by a hungry crocodile, who was determined on dragging the wildebeest underwater to have it for lunch. For 8 minutes, this epic battle ensued as the wildebeest fought for dear life. Enter 2 charging hippos. They came rushing into the scene, smashing into the croc, and helped the wildebeest break free. So, why did the hippos do this? Out of the kindness of their hearts? According to Douglas McCarthy from National Geographic, the hippos likely did this to stake their territory. Hippos are super territorial, and if anything encroaches in their territory, they charge. That's what McCarthy theorizes happened here. The scuffle and splashing about was infringing on the hippo's territory, and they snapped. In doing so, they happened to save the life of a wildebeest and ruin a crocodile's dinner plans. Not gonna lie, but nature is still amazing, even if it's cruel. Number 8. Rescuing beached whales. As you can probably imagine, a beached whale is pretty hard to push back into the ocean. Since they weigh tens of thousands of pounds. So when 10 sperm whales turned up on a beach in Indonesia, rescuers pretty much had a tough job ahead of them. Successfully moving whales back into the ocean requires trained professionals with the right equipment, and let's not forget, they need luck. A whale stranded on a beach can usually only survive a day or two. Quick spoiler alert, they managed to put 7 out of the 10 whales back into the sea. So it sucks that 3 of them didn't make it on the beach, but hey, you can only do what you can do. So what exactly happened? Well, scientists still aren't sure why these massive sperm whales decide to beach themselves. One of the main concerns is that their organs collapse under their weight. Obviously at sea, whales are much more buoyant, and once their bodies are out of the water, gravity starts taking over. Whales can also suffer from sunburns and dehydration when they show up on the beach. It was an epic struggle, but ultimately they succeeded in pushing 7 whales back into the ocean. However, one of the 7 later resurfaced, and this time it was already too late. Number 7. Miracle Molly. Unless you're Superman or the Incredible Hulk, getting hit by a speeding locomotive is a certain death sentence, right? Well, meet Molly, the miracle dog. Molly is a pit bull from Baltimore, and one day she somehow managed to find her way into a train tunnel. That's when a speeding Amtrak came barreling down on her. Molly couldn't get out of the way in time, and she even had one of her legs chopped off by the train. Amtrak officer Kevin McMullen was able to climb down from the train and into the tunnel to find Molly still breathing. He managed to take her to the vet, where they helped to save her life. It's amazing that she survived because her leg was gone, along with half of her blood, and she even lost half her tail. The vets worked their magic, and Molly miraculously survived. Now, here's where the story makes you go, aw. Officer McMullen decided to adopt her and was provided a loving home for her ever since. As these stories often do, the story of Molly went viral. Hey, who doesn't like a heartwarming story? Number 6. Saved from an earthquake. Earthquakes pretty much suck. They cause buildings to collapse, the power to go out, and worst of all, people often die. One of the unseen tragedies in all of this is that pets often die too. This was definitely the case back on August 24, 2016, when a massive earthquake shook central Italy. One of the few bright spots in this awful tragedy that claimed at least 300 lives is the story of Romeo, a golden retriever who was rescued after spending 9 days underneath the rubble. 9 days. Romeo's humans returned home to assess the damage and to salvage what they could. Oh yeah, and to look for their dog. They began yelling for Romeo's name in a somewhat desperate attempt, but remarkably, they heard a bark to indicate Romeo was still alive. Firefighters who were escorting the couple began digging through the rubble and finally found poor Romeo, who had miraculously survived after all this time. As far as I know, Romeo is still alive and well. Hopefully he'll never have to experience being buried for 9 days again. That goes for anyone, actually. Number 5. Ben the Bear. In August of 2012, Ben the Bear was rescued from a terrible roadside zoo in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Jambas Ranch kept Ben locked away in a small concrete cage, depriving him of the most basic necessities for a bear. How he managed to survive for 6 years the way he did is truly mind-boggling. He drank and bathed in water from a metal bin. He was fed dry dog food and was lazily dumped on the floor of his cage, where he often used the bathroom. So, yeah, it was pretty abysmal. Thankfully, a group of concerned citizens teamed up with PETA to file a lawsuit against Jambas, and a judge ruled that the bear's needs were in fact not being met. So she released Ben into PETA's custody, who then transferred him to a sanctuary in Northern California. Now, Ben has space to roam, play, and most importantly, access to clean water. For their part, Jambas had their license suspended in 2014. The U.S. Department of Agriculture responded for several complaints about the ranch, including bred goats and, of course, the poor treatment of Ben. The ranch is no longer open to the public and can no longer display exotic animals, big cats, or primates. Number 4. Valediction the racehorse. If forcing a racehorse that suffers from arthritis to continue racing seems a bit cruel, well, that's because it is. When a PETA investigator noticed that a racehorse named Valediction was being injected with something, she became suspicious. She noticed white scars all over the horse's legs, evidence of a practice called freeze firing. What this means is that the horse is burned with liquid nitrogen in order to stimulate blood flow after an injury. So you do the math here. Injections to the knees, crazy cruel practice, meant to help with horse injuries. Yeah, someone was making this horse race while suffering a chronic injury. Before the investigation, it was discovered that Valediction was forced to run in a race where she was so badly injured, he had to be carted off the track. That's when Sam Simon, our animal activist and The Simpsons co-founder, stepped in and bought the horse to ensure he never had a race on bad legs again. Turns out the horse was suffering from such severe arthritis, he can never be ridden again. Now, Valediction is enjoying post-racing life on a nice farm in Virginia where he's treated well and cared for. Number 3. Sunder the elephant. Sunder was an elephant who was kept in captivity at a temple in India. This poor elephant was kept in horrid conditions at the temple in Kolhapur, India, where he spent most of his time chained up. He was beaten, poorly fed, and sported some pretty nasty bruises and scars. Obviously, there's no way to treat any animal, especially not an endangered species who bears a great deal of cultural and religious significance. I mean, come on. The Indian Supreme Court seems to agree as well. In 2012, when undercover PETA investigators released footage of Sunder's handler beating the malnourished elephant, the internet basically lost it and the Save Sunder campaign was born. After an intense legal battle that reached the Indian Supreme Court and piqued the interest of one Sir Paul McCartney, Sunder was released to a sanctuary at Bannerghatta Biological Park in Bangalore. And in 2014, the Times of India reported that Sunder was recovering from his wounds. Today, Sunder has a clean bill of health and is living a happy elephant life, an ending I'm definitely happy with. Number 2, Crispy Bacon. Given the really clever play on words in the name, I hope that you guessed that Crispy Bacon is a pig. And while many pigs are destined to become a sizzling slice of bacon or a pork tenderloin, things turned out a bit different for our little guy, Crispy Bacon here. He was born a bit disadvantaged and whatnot on a farm in Florida. His hind legs were malformed and virtually useless, so he had to compensate by hoisting his butt off the ground and balancing on his forelimbs. Impressive for a little piggy, but a problem nonetheless. Weighing less than 1 pound and unable to really walk, he was taken to Dr. Len Lucero, a veterinarian who decided to adopt him. Dr. Lucero basically crafted a wheelchair. It's a harness that straps onto him and has 2 back wheels where his legs would normally go, saving Crispy Bacon quite a bit of effort. He decided to film Crispy Bacon's maiden voyage on his new wheels, put it on YouTube, and from there, he became an internet sensation. Soon, his legend began to grow, and he was on Anderson Cooper, The Today Show, and shows on the Discovery Channel and PBS. He's even been the inspiration for a children's book series. So, quick recap. A pig was born without working legs. The cons, he's confined to a customized wheelchair. The pros, he avoids becoming someone's breakfast and becomes more famous and liked than most humans ever will. Hey, can't complain about that. Number 1, the elephant and the ostrich. In 2014, rescuers from the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, or DSWT for short, received a call about an elephant stuck in a well in Kenya. When rescuers arrived to the well in the remote area of Milgis Luga, they found the young elephant alive in the well. But, get this, They also found 2 little ostrich chicks who were somehow accompanying him as well in the well. All 3 were, of course, rescued. Rescuers attempted to reunite Was, the elephant, with his herd, but efforts had failed. Instead, Was was taken to the DSWT nursery along with his 2 new friends. A spokesperson for DSWT said that Was will be returned to the wild when he belongs after he recovers in a few years. Similarly, it appears the ostriches will also be re-released into the wild whenever they gain the strength to do so. Are these guys going to be BFFs or a bit while they're all recovering? Hey, stranger things have happened. Here's what's next.
The exact reasons why. James B. Murphy, a herpetologist and research associate at the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, says that the behavior is very rare and is usually a sign of a snake at the end of its life. He says that when snakes are very sick, they'll bite themselves. Unlike mammals, snakes don't show emotions and have few behavioral responses to viruses or other illnesses. One explanation for why a snake might bite its own tail is that when kept